I agree with you on the DNA. I think that we have to like really, really, really recognize that our DNA is sacred and a very, 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 very critical, essential aspect of everything. And so, but the problem, I mean, when you see globalists getting into, designing like diseases that specifically kill white people or that are meant to lower the population, all of this genetic science that's being weaponized, etc. It's what's the point? What is the instinct here? Oh, well, we're going to cure diseases. Bullshit. This is like fuckery. You're going down an evil path that you shouldn't go down. It highlights the importance of our DNA. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And I think we're kind of coming at the same angle from slightly different starting points, because from the biblical Christian perspective, man was made in God's image, and we've essentially created AI and robotics in our image, and essentially we're trying to play God, and that was the initial sort of downfall of man in the beginning, was to try and be God, to be better than God, and to supersede it. And we were created lower than God, but I think these megalomaniacs are literally trying to be God, and that was, you look at the Tower of Babel and stories like that. That has been the sort of crux of man's or the most sinister objective of man since.
It's not over.
Yeah.
In fact, the tools that we have now were they, I guess, are more capable of creating this fallacy of man as God. It's a tricky thing, though, because like from an esoteric spiritual perspective, we already are God, in the sense that God is us, I suppose. That there's the Holy Spirit, I suppose, is what you might want to say.
Yeah, I would say we can encapsulate the Holy Spirit, and I think that spirit is manifest through the soul.
And so it's a different kind of spiritual, esoteric orientation to drive yourself towards God within, rather than drive yourself towards the ego, which is this false self, and it's the self that creates suffering. It's the self that creates war and poverty and on and on, all the suffering in the human condition. You could essentially nail it to ego. So again, this is kind of where I think Buddhism has perhaps the most advanced philosophy on the topic of the ego. I would actually call Buddhism like a hyper advanced form of psychology, even though there are spiritual beings and practices, etc.
I would say the problem I have with Buddhism and so on is that it's almost a bit libertarian in a way. Like, I'm gonna lock myself away in the mountain and focus on me.
I can speak to that.
But collectively, it doesn't do much for your own people. It's a very individualistic pursuit, and that's in some ways is selfish, isn't it?
Let me throw first of all, you have extremely valid points, and they're extremely important to our movement, and we have to address those points. But let me throw you a curveball. Why did Hitler's Vril Society send people to Tibet?
I don't know much on that topic, to be honest.
Okay, so why? How is it that the Buddha had blue eyes?
Well, he was Caucasian, for sure.
Okay, so he was. I mean, his family can be traced to Iran, and that is traced even further back to, I believe,
Europeans started out in Iran, right?
We're talking about 3,000 years ago. Like, people migrate, things change.
Yeah, of course.
The fact that Buddhism today is considered an Asian religion is just packaging. It's just cultural packaging that we in our movement can't see beyond. But we have to recognize that we have a link to these teachings, and it's sort of the Vedas, which is Hinduism. So if you were to read any of the scriptures in Buddhism, they always refer to the Buddha as the great Arya, which is the kind of the early Hindu translation of Aryan. So the great Aryan, you know what I'm saying here? So I just want to put that out there. That's another rabbit hole people can go down. But to your point, yes, it is not the time to be retiring from society. It's the time to be getting involved in the movement, in the struggle, to fight, to go forward. And here's a good example of that. When I went to Shaolin Temple, here I have a Buddhist monk from China, a 34th generation monk in the temple that created Zen Buddhism, you know, and I'm saying, you're teaching us how to maim and kill people. Like, what? How does that align with Buddhism? Like, we're supposed to be nonviolent, we're supposed to know about karma, and then And then, you know, he's like, that's a very good question, and here's the answer. If we did not become martial, then the Buddhist teaching would have disappeared through civil wars long, long, long ago. And so in order to protect the what's called the Dharma, or the Buddhist teaching, and you could maybe apply this to, say, Christianity. In order to save Christianity, you must become warriors now in order to stop another church from being burned down, in order to stop politicians from invading your country with Muslims, and on and on and on and on. So that's the phase of where we are in terms of like spirituality. It's the spirituality that is, in a sense, the sword and the shield. So I'm not saying, you know, it's a very contradictory thing, because so long as we're in these bodies in the third dimension, we have to live through this drama. We have to live through this narrative. And we have to be the heroes of that story. And so in order to be the greatest warriors, we must be masters of Zen. Does that make sense?